Good evening, gang. How's everybody doing? This is take 3. Please do not mind me, but I've just got so much to share. I made a boo-boo, and I've got to share this with you. Ricky and I had an incredible night last night, and I originally wanted to share something from Wednesday night's Bible study with you guys, but this was very important. This was so on my heart, and I want to share something very special that I got to see. But I want to also compare two people in this. Last night, Ricky and I got to see a really awesome movie. It was a movie done by Greg Laurie, Pastor Greg Laurie of Harvest Church. And in this movie, it was a documentary, a very special documentary, and it was on the life of none other than Steve McQueen. Name ring a bell? Okay, how about another name? Because these are two names I want to compare with you. Steve McQueen and Hugh Hefner. Okay? As we know, Hugh Hefner just died. Now, I want to compare both individuals with you, okay? Hugh Hefner had this empire with the Playboy, with Playboy, the Playboy Mansion, you name it. But he basically, how do I put this, was living a dead life. And same thing with Steve McQueen. But there's a big difference between the two of them, and that's what I want to share with you guys. While Hugh went on to have this empire, which was based on objectifying and degrading women as far as I'm concerned. And I'll admit, I've seen some of the stuff. I saw some of the magazines, and I regret it, and I've asked the Lord to forgive me. But he basically felt that biblical attitudes, especially about sex, were considered evil, apparently. I don't know where in the world he got that one, but if he only really knew. That's all I'm going to say. Most of you know Hugh's life, but not very many know some interesting things about Steve McQueen. And that's what I wanted to talk with you about. I was so blessed to be able to see this movie last night with my husband, and I learned an awful lot about this man. You know all the movies that Steve McQueen did. He was literally what the name of the movie, Steve McQueen, American Icon. He was, even after his death, even now, he was considered the ultimate in hip and cool. And he was. I mean, it was amazing, especially what I got to see in this movie. But like Hugh Hefner, Steve McQueen was living an empty life too. And interestingly too, Steve's home life wasn't too happy, where I think Hugh's probably had a little bit, I don't know. But Hugh was, unlike Hugh, I don't know how to put this, but Steve was abandoned pretty much by his mom and his dad. His dad left when he was only 6 months old, so he never really knew his dad. He was primarily raised in Missouri by his Uncle Claude. And at the age of 12, he went back to live with his mom, and she had a new husband out in Los Angeles, California. Unfortunately, that was a total nightmare for Steve, because her new husband beat him. I had no idea about this. He was put through abuse. And I think this, and in this, I got to learn a bit about Pastor Greg Laurie, because this is what Pastor Greg went through. Pastor Greg was saying how he felt like a kindred spirit to Steve because of this. And Steve was hanging out with a street gang. He was constantly getting into trouble. He got arrested. And at one point, his mom sent him to a boys' home called the California Junior Boys Republic in Chino Hills, California. He was there for several years. Apparently, he probably, at this point, probably wanted nothing to do with his mom. He decided to join the Marines in 1947, and he left the Marines. He was, I think, honorably discharged in 1950. I also learned that one of the things he did, and this is going to, bear some fruit later on, he worked in it looked like a naval shipyard. In a ship, he was cleaning the ship, cleaning the inside and the inner bowels of the ship. And after he got done with that, he started studying acting. He was accepted into a very prestigious actor studio school called the Actor Studio. It was done by Lee Strasberg. Steve auditioned with about 2,000 other hopefuls, but he and Martin Landau, who went on to do Mission Impossible, and he just recently passed away, I think within the last year. Only he and Martin were accepted in this school. He debuts in a play called A Hatful of Rain. He doesn't do too well with Broadway, but he starts doing guest appearances on television shows, and it leads to a lead in a TV series called Wanted, Dead or Alive. And I see the TV show on MeTV, and I believe also on H&I, Heroes and Icons Network here. But he gets this first leading role in a horror movie. A little tiny little rinky horror movie, if you want to call it that, in 1958 called The Blob. Anybody remember that one? I sure do, especially the song. But his big break came when he replaced Sammy Davis Jr. in a film called Never So Few, which starred Frank Sinatra. And apparently, Sinatra took an instant liking to Steve, and he urged the director John Sturges to quote-unquote give the newcomer a break. And Sturges recognized McQueen's raw talent. So he offered him roles in other movies. Movies like The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, in particular. He went on to do other classic films too. Steve McQueen did one called Bullet. Anybody remember that one? Papillon, The Sand Pebbles, The Getaway, Le Mans. Now that kind of, according to what I heard in this documentary, it tanked. And that kind of set him into a bit of a tailspin. See, all during this time, he's trying to find happiness. He's trying to find real peace. And he's not quite getting it. But see, if you backtrack to when they did the movie The Blob, there was something very God-sent in that. You see, in that movie, The Blob, it was a movie that was done by a Christian production company called Good News Productions, I believe. Look it up. I kid you not. And apparently there he was first surrounded with Christians. Later on, and I'm going to share this with you as well, he would be surrounded with other Christians in other instances. And I'm going to share that with you. But he went on to do a whole bunch of other movies after Le Mans, the original, the Thomas Crown Affair, Junior Bonner, Tom Horn, and The Towering Inferno, among so many others. And like I said, his life was a tumultuous one. He was married 3 times. The first was a woman named Neil Adams, who was a dancer-actress. They had 2 children, yeah. But, how do I put this? Steve was still searching. I don't know how to put it. He went to the next wife, which happened to be Ali MacGraw, who was a very well-known actress. He met her on the set of The Getaway. They were married from 73 to 78. But during all this, he's just desperately searching. I mean, even during this, in 1969, I'm going to throw another name at you. Sharon Tate. He was on his way to her home when apparently he picked up a hitchhiker and took that hitchhiker somewhere else. He avoided being a victim of a massacre. Does that help any? He goes on to marry his 3rd wife, Barbara Minty. And that wouldn't be till later. However, he just was searching, drugs, alcohol, sex, you name it, was going to help him, going to make him happy. He decided at one point to become a complete recluse. He would do anything and everything so he wouldn't be noticed because he just did not want to. He didn't want to. He was just trying to find peace. And as I'm watching this movie, it just really burdened my heart, which is why I'm sharing this with all of you guys. But some of the other things about him was he was this tremendous motorcyclist and race car driver, which is why I think he did Le Mans. And when he would perform a lot of his own stunts. And this is when another person came in to play that was a Christian. One of the head stuntmen in this, one of the main stuntmen in this, happened to be a born-again Christian, and another seed got planted. And that settled in his heart, I'm sure of it. He wanted to do his own stunts, and almost every movie he could. The insurance companies wouldn't let him do the most dangerous ones, which he always regretted. But in the Great Escape, that famous fence jump, he didn't do it, but it was his good friend and stunt driver Bud Beckins that did it. And his love of racing led to even more movies and documentaries involving both car and motorcycle racing. When he made Le Mans, it was in 1971. It was considered, actually, now it's considered one of the best documentary films about the racing world. He did a lot of his own driving in that. But, as I said again, he was just living this life that was so unhappy. Absolutely so unhappy. But then, something incredible happened. In this moment where he wanted it was being reclusive, when he met his third wife, he decides he wants to learn how to be an airplane pilot. And he meets up with a man out of Santa Clara who also happens to be a born-again Christian. And this man was the father figure that Steve so badly needed. This man and his son, they were just such a godly influence in their life. They actually convinced, not just simply convinced, let's put it this way, Steve wanted to go to their church, started going. The result one day, when the pastor there at the church gave an altar call and invited people to come to know Christ as Savior, Steve did it. People, I'm here to tell you, Steve McQueen accepted Christ in his life. That got me when I heard that. Basically, Steve finally found the happiness, the peace that he was longing for. And that was through Jesus Christ. And he was not afraid to say it. He was not afraid to say it. Not at all. Not at all. He said it in one of the last interviews he ever did. I kid you not. He did, and I was so overwhelmed, just so, I don't know how to describe it. It flooded my heart with so much joy again to see this movie. And I really wanted to share this with you guys. But before I do, you all know Steve McQueen died at the age of 50. It was in 1980. From cancer. He had this when it first came out, something called mesothelioma. And we have it now today. He was trying everything and anything. He finally married Brooke in 1980, the year of his death, because he wanted to do the right, not just to do the right thing, but he wanted to do the godly thing in the eyes of God. Apparently, both he and Barbara did get saved, and he wanted to serve the Lord so much. He just wanted to serve the Lord so much, and the last movie he did was in 1980, and how to describe it. It just did my heart so much good. Getting to see this movie, getting to see how God can and will change anybody. I was enjoying this movie of people like Shawn Michaels, who was probably in the same situation, living an empty life, and he thought drugs and alcohol and being the WWE champion and being a big WWE star was going to do it for him. And when he found Christ Jesus, that did it. And it was the same for Steve McQueen. In this movie, in this documentary that Pastor Greg did, he interviewed the stuntman, the Christian stuntman that shared the gospel with him, interviewed the airplane pilot, his son, in particular, the pastor, but also interviewed Barbara Lee, who was one of his co-stars and somebody he was romantically involved with, and also he interviewed Mel Gibson of all people. Now, I know some people have some things about Gibson, but I digress on that. But just to hear, just to see the incredible change that took place in this man's life, and then finding out yesterday as well the death of a 91-year-old man who apparently did everything he could to mock God, to mock Christianity, to debase women, and look where he's at right now. He went into eternity lost, and he's in hell right now. I hate to say it, but I'm here right now. I want to share something important with everyone that's watching this, especially those that don't know Christ as Savior. You don't have to be lost. You don't have to be condemned to hell. I have a very important question for you. If you were to die right now, where would you go? If you know Christ is your Savior, you can be assured of heaven. But if not, if you don't know Him, you will be condemned to hell, and I don't want to see that. I'd like to know right now if you would like to know Christ as your Savior, because you can be ready. You can have Him in your heart today if you want. All you have to do is admit that you are a sinner, that you are lost in your sins, and that without the gift of His precious blood being poured out on your sins, you will be condemned to hell forever. The Bible says, and this was something Pastor Greg said in this movie at the close, he gave an altar call, and he said, the Bible said in Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Romans 6:23 says, for the wages of sin, that means the penalty, the payment for sin is death. But the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. That last part, that means there's good news. You don't have to be condemned to hell. You don't have to be lost forever in hell. The good news is that God loves you so much that He sent His one and only Son, Jesus, to the cross for your sins. He willingly was hung on a nasty rugged cross, murdered, buried in a tomb, and rose again 3 days later, proving He has the power over sin and death, that He has the power of redemption, and He's making this gift of eternal life available to you right now. All you need to do, as I said, is admit you're a sinner, acknowledge your need for Him, and ask Him into your heart, accept Him today. I want to state those who think that they can earn their way to heaven. Trust me, I'm telling you right now, there's no such thing as many paths or other ways to heaven. And for those that believe that there's no God, you are so being lied to. You are certainly not going to find happiness in a pill, a joint, shooting up, booze, sex, or anything other than God. He is standing at the door of your heart. He, as I said, He loves so much that He willingly sent, despite the fact that He is holy, just, righteous. He exists, and He hates sin, but He loves you, and He willingly sent His one and only Son to die on the cross for you. And as I said before, Jesus came to live a sinless life, murdered on a rugged, nasty cross, buried, but 3 days later rose again, and He did it all for you. his name. Today, seek his face. Receive him into your heart right now. Ask him to forgive you of whatever sins you've committed. And trust me, he'll forgive you. He doesn't care if you're Buddhist, Jewish, Muslim, any religion, just as long as you let him in your heart. He doesn't care about your lifestyle. He doesn't care what you've done, where you're from, or anything about you. Just please let him in. I have a link here. Why don't you go ahead and close this? Click on this link, read it, and make that decision to come to know Christ right now. Or better yet, why don't you pray this with me? You don't have to pray the exact words, but please mean it. Just say the Lord Jesus. I know that I'm a sinner, and all my sin condemns me to hell. It separates me from you. I hear right now that you love me despite my sin, that you love me enough to send your son Jesus to die on the cross for me, to shed his precious blood on that rugged, nasty cross for my sins, and that he was buried and he rose again 3 days later, and I know he's at the door of my heart right now, and I'm saying, come in, Jesus, come in my heart right now and save me. Wash my sins away with your precious blood. I choose to receive you right now as my Savior and my Lord. Thank you for saving me, for giving me eternal life, for making me a new creature in you, a new creation, that I am born again and that I am your child, and I will serve you for all of my days. If you click on this link and you pray and ask Christ into your heart, or you pray with me and you meant it, just bottom line mean it, and you ask me into your heart, I'd like to hear from you. I want to help me point you in the right direction of a good local church. I want to help you in any possible to grow in the Lord. This is something I felt important to share with you because this movie is so awesome. And it is going to be coming back again. Just so you know, it's going to come back October 10th and October 19th. I have a link here on this with this post that you can click and put in your zip code and find out where it's going to be at. I encourage you to see it. I'm hoping, I'd like to see if anybody is interested who lives in the Bensalem area, Bensalem, VA, who would like to get together with my husband and I, possibly, if possible. But I encourage you to click on this and get your tickets for this. When I went to this yesterday, it was packed. And I'm telling you, it premiered yesterday, and I know it had an impact, and you got to see it. My prayer for you is that, with what I've shared with you, that you will make a decision to accept, receive Christ as your Savior, to live, to allow Christ to change you, to not live a life of dishonor and sin, but to live a life that is full and free in Him. I've got to get going. I have a few things to take as always, but I really wish you all a wonderful evening. And remember that God can change anyone. I'm going to close with this verse, 2 Corinthians 5, verse 17, that states, if any man be in Christ, therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. Steve McQueen found that out, and he's rejoicing in it right now. I'd love for you to find that out too. You guys have an awesome evening, and I hope to talk with you guys tomorrow on Sunday. And I'll share, hopefully then, what God showed me from His Word. Bye for now.